Hey, this is Trevor, education programmer with Stark Parks. Today I'm at the Magnolia Flowering Mill. Now in the spring we did a few videos that talked about the mill overall and the history of the town. But today I wanted to give you guys the opportunity to be able to see not only the first floor that is typically seen on tours when the building's open, but also some of the things that aren't normally seen on the second, third, and fourth floor due to the accessibility issues at this time. So first we're actually going to start with the water wheels. The water wheels are in the basement of the building, but it's usually easier to see them from the outside. So I'm actually going to turn the camera here and we're going to head towards the water wheels. As you can see, that is the mill pond. The mill pond was used to turn these water wheels for a very long time, and that water is what powered the mill and all the machinery here in the building. In the mid 1900s, the mill was completely converted to electric power, so these water wheels aren't used anymore. The water wheels that are in here today, these are steel overshot water wheels. So what that means is the water will come from the mill pond, go over top of these wheels, and they would turn, and that would drive all the machinery in the building. Now, once again, the building is now powered by electric, so these aren't really used anymore. The water for a long time would still go into the building and exit out of it. And one of the renovation projects that was done, since this has been closed and has been undergoing some work, is actually this new pipe was put in, and it directs all the excess water from the mill pond into that pipe, and that will go through the building and exit out the back and go into the Sandy Beaver Canal. So next we're going to go into the building and we're going to see the first floor. Now when product comes today, it would actually go into this first bin. It will drop into that bin, and then it will actually go up some things called elevator cups that I'll show you once we get inside. And it would go up to the second floor to a machine called, we call it the shaker, but it's a separator. And you'll see that in the next video when I go over the second, third, and fourth floors. Now over here, these machines right here are called the flower packers. There were some that were able to do small bags and some that were able to do larger containers. One of the great things about the mill is that a lot of the original machinery is still in the building, and a lot of it still has that original stenciling on it to where you can see where it was made and be able to track down some of the manufacturers and the story behind it. So as you can see right here, this one says Invincible Friction Clutch Flower Packer from S. Howe's Company in New York. So once the flour was produced, it would be stored up in bins above us, and then you would have a miller down here filling up their containers or bags or barrels or whatever they were using, so that way it would be ready to go. Now the mill after the 1970s didn't really make flour anymore. Since Stark Parks has owned it, we've mainly focused on corn products like cornmeal, various animal seeds, and things like that. This machine right here, I'll actually cut back to where the light was a little bit better so that way you can see what I'm looking at here. This machine is called a rolling mill. There are a series of roller mills along the stretch, and these were put in by A.R. Elson, who was Richard Elson's son, in the 1880s. Now in the 1880s, this was basically becoming the newest trend in flour production. These roller mills replaced the grist stones that were being used. Now this mill did use some grist stones after that, but this was really doing the heavy work of taking that grain, that wheat, and being able to break it into smaller components and turn it into the flour. Now the reason it's called a roller mill is because inside of all of these are a system of steel rollers, and they have different corrugations. Some are smooth, some are deeper corrugated, And those rollers would roll against one another, and that is what would break that grain up. So this one has a series of 5 of them. So that means that that grain could go up and down multiple times through the system. It would go and get sifted, bleached, and eventually would make its way back over to here once it's ready to go and turn into flour and be packed and sent on its way. Back here out this entrance, this building that's to the left is the old train depot that was in town, and this was mentioned in some of the other videos that we've done before. But this train depot actually used to sit further in town, down that driveway there, closer to the village park. And once the railroad left town, the Elsons actually had the building picked up and moved to this location. And where this driveway is, there actually used to be a railroad spur that would come up to the building and be able to load rail cars that way, and be able to send product to all different types of markets. If you can hear the water in the background, that is where the water exits the building through the pipe, and it goes back into the canal. And the Elsons were really always on top of the next technology. They used the Sandy Beaver Canal when they first started, and used canal boats to be able to send products to different markets. The Sandy Beaver Canal in particular didn't last very long. It was a privately financed canal, and by the time it was built, the railroads had already become very important in this area, and things just kind of transitioned to that way. To my left here, there are a couple mixers that we would use when making product. We go up this ramp here. All these chutes that you see, these are all connected to the flour production process. So really a lot of that other part of the mill that we were just in recent years hasn't been used because we're not producing flour anymore. This red machine here, this is our Birdseed Mixer. So we would take various products like our corn that we would break up, things like sunflower seeds, millet, oats, wheat, and we would mix those together to be able to make a product. This machine right here, this is our electric motor. This is what today powers the majority of the mill. It will turn that wheel and that belt, and along that axle you can see the other wheels that are turning and running a lot of the machinery on this side of the mill. This is probably my favorite thing in the entire mill. This is actually a hand-powered elevator, and the millers today don't use this just for obvious safety concerns. But this was used in the past for a miller just to be able to quickly hop on and be able to go up all the way up to the 3rd level of the mill if needed. There's counterweights that are in this that could be set to the size of the rider, and they would be able to go up and down the mill as needed. And you can see this is actually a product of Ohio, and it was made by the Sydney Elevator Manufacturing Company out of Sydney, Ohio. These wheels right here, these go into the basement area, and they essentially would control the water that would flow over the water wheels. So if you needed more or less water to spin that wheel faster, these are what they would turn to be able to do that. Now the last couple things I'm going to show you on this level before we go upstairs for the second video. These chutes are just other various chutes to where when product is ready to go, we just use gravity from the bin upstairs, and they just drop down to here. We pull these paddles, and we would fill up our bags. Now, obviously you can see a little bit of cobwebs forming here and there. The mill hasn't been operating as a mill for the last several years just because we've been doing a lot of work on the building, putting a new roof, new siding, new electrical work, things like that. So we haven't been able to actually run product through here like before. But as you can see, we have a cracked corn bin, wheat bin, some of our bins for our cornmeal, bird corn, things like that. And the millers, they would have to learn the special kind of knot called the miller's knot, which essentially cinches the bag together. If you threw around that bag it would be very hard for it to come open, but with a little pull of the string, you could get it open, which is pretty fascinating. These two machines were used a lot by us, Stark Parks. One of these is our cornmeal machine, and one of these we called our corn cracker. They're doing two different functions, making two different types of corn. The corn would come from up top, go into the hopper, and then would be fed through, ground up, would go upstairs to a sifter, which you're going to see. And then once it was completed, it would be stored in those bins above us, which you'll get to see here soon. And then it would come down the chutes, and they would bag it up, weigh it, and tie it up, and have it ready to go. So with that, that was the first floor. In our next video, I'll go over some of the things that are on the second, third, and fourth floor. So stay tuned.